Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Mav Friends, a podcast where I talk to anyone and anyone about anything or anyone. On today's episode, I am joined by Emerald. Emerald is a absolutely outstanding artist. Very enjoyed watching and seeing Emerald grow as an artist over the few months that I've actually had the pleasure of knowing her. This was a wonderful interview. I really enjoyed this. We took a deep dive into the kind of mental illness part of art as well, and this is a great episode. I hope you enjoy. Meet Emerald.
Right, well, thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for coming on this episode of Mav Friends. We'll get into a few things, but I do just want to ask, how did you get into art? Everyone knows you're into art. How did you get into it?
So it's quite a story. So I got into art when I was maybe in 6th or 7th grade. It was the first time I drew anything, right? And it was really interesting because it was a really stupid little anime eye from manga that I was reading that was next to my desk. It was in math class, it's interesting because even though I can look back at it, I can say like, oh God, oof. It was the first time that I had ever really done something for myself. It was the first time that I felt legitimate pride in something that I had done, because I had spent so long of my life just going through the motions and being and doing what I was told I needed to do, because in the Middle East, what I mean. But this is the first time where I was like, do it just because you can, just do it because you want to do it. And it was transformative, honestly. It was like one of those, like, you see it in like TV scenes or like movies, etc. But like, it was a moment in my life where it changed the way that I saw everything. And it made me realize that, like, I didn't realize this because I was like in 6th grade. I was a stupid kid, right? But looking back at it, I knew that this is what I wanted to do in my life. You know what I mean? And I almost became addicted to this feeling of freedom, which is what art gives me. It gives me the ability to draw what I want and what I see and what I think is important. I can create my own reality, right? So,
right. Okay, got you. It's quite interesting that you looked at something and you thought, like, after not knowing what you want to do for so long, you then look at something, you're like, all right, this is what I want to do. All because I think that's really awesome. I think it, like, every time you ask people, they're like, oh well, I've always wanted to do it. Ever since I was little, I always wanted to do this. But it's like, sometimes you don't know until you do something where you're like, all right, this is what I want to do. So it's quite nice in that kind of perspective.
Exactly, yeah. And I think the biggest thing is that there are like so many people who might not have, like, the most supportive parents, et cetera, like me, as you're growing older. Like, there are a lot of roadblocks I know that I had to go through, like a lot of them, to be able to draw and do what I wanted to do, you know what I mean? And that's when it really does test, like, whether or not this is something that is like for you for the rest of your life, because like doing art is difficult. It's not an easy career. You're going to face ire from a lot of people. You can face ire from your family, especially if your family isn't supportive. Like, it's not easy. It requires a lot of work, a lot of patience, a lot of sweat and toil. And oftentimes, like, many people will, take your drawing and then put it as like their Twitter profile picture and not give you credit, and then like people think art is expendable. I think that's changing a lot more recently, especially as we're getting a lot more into the digital age and all of that. But it is at times like a thankless job. And so if you really want to go into it for a career, like it's one of those things where I think personally, like, passion does need to drive you, because it is a very difficult like job to go into.
I've seen so many just through passing of people where their art's been used without them knowing, and it's just like, it sucks, because if someone used my video without me knowing, at least if you're gonna steal it, cool, but at least thank me for it. Like, at least if you're gonna steal something from me, at least say thank you. At least be like, look, I'm gonna steal this from you, but I really like it, or whatever. Like, don't just take it.
Yeah, please,
at least give me a little pat on the back for, like, like, as you're screwing me over, but
and like, I feel like a lot of people think art is expendable, you know, because it's just an art piece. They don't really see the person behind it. And so it's really easy to detach the hours and hours of effort put into it and like take it apart from the final piece that someone might think is pretty or cool or aesthetic or whatever.
Yeah, like I remember once I was doing a thumbnail for a video and I took a bit of art online and I literally typed in copyright free. It was to do with Viva Pinata, and I took that and I've just took like the first image and I slapped it on the thumbnail, and then like the video went up and then I got a comment on the video and it was from someone saying like, "This is my art, can you take it down?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, right, sure, sorry, I'm sorry that happened. 1 second." And I felt, and ever since that moment, I refuse to use any image that I don't completely transform. Like I do a lot of Photoshop, and obviously that's all like satire. So you would have no idea it's the. But I felt so bad. I was like, I've done what I hate, you know, and it completely. But would you say? Sorry, would you say it's like tougher now being an artist online than it was when you were just starting out and it was all offline, I presume, or did you come into it and it was all online anyway?
So that's actually an interesting question because I think that it's gotten easier in terms of accessibility, in terms of people getting to know you. I think that artists have so many more opportunities than they would have had like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, et cetera, all of that. The problem, however, I think is that with this increased visibility of artists, there's also now an extended pressure. Honestly, I think all content creators go through this, but there is this extended pressure to not just see the art but to see who you are, and like especially if you're going to be like an online artist, you know, people don't just want to see what you create, they want to understand like who you are as a person, what it is that makes this art, etc., etc. And for me, for somebody who's really open, like I'm okay with that, you know, but I know that there are some people who struggle with that greatly. And of course, you know, you're putting yourself on the internet for people to judge. Like there are obviously going to be somebody who doesn't like what you do or who is gonna so in a way, I feel like it's gotten easier in terms of you know, accessibility and everything, and you can get out there and people will be able to recognize your art. But it's gotten harder in the way where it's like there's a lot more required of you now. And you know, with like things like Twitter and cancel culture, et cetera, I feel like all content creators kind of go through this like this pressure to put forth an image of themselves that is as you know, PG or acceptable as possible. And we're all humans and we all make mistakes. And art in itself, I feel, should discuss things that we don't feel comfortable in talking about. And so there are a lot of artists that I know that I've been friends with for a very long time or that I respect who have said that they have over time been kind of taming their art down, not talking about, you know, really like difficult things, just kind of drawing, you know, whatever sells because they're afraid of the backlash that they could potentially get, you know. So
yeah, because I think a lot of people, so obviously I'm talking mainly from like a Twitch front. Do you think you have to be careful when you put when you're drawing on Twitch in terms of like being PG, or is it not a thought that
so it's interesting because I am very open, like as probably everybody knows, you know. I just I'm here to have a good time, I'm here to be myself. I don't really believe in censoring myself, et cetera, but there are times where sometimes I'm worried that the way that I draw things or my views, et cetera, could make somebody upset. Like, for example, I know that, so I have a character, her name is Yuna, and she's kind of like my flagship, like that's kind of what my brand runs under and everything, right? And she is overweight and she has a big nose, like her face isn't necessarily conventionally attractive, you know what I mean? And I love her. And I love her and I love drawing her, and I'm very lucky to have a community that accepts her, right? But I have run into, I think it's like, I've only had this happen like maybe twice, but I did run into somebody who had an issue with me drawing her because they said that I was making a mockery of Middle Eastern features.
Right.
Because the nose is big. Because the nose is big. Because she has like eye bags, you know, et cetera, all of that. And that was like, what? You know, because I guess it's maybe I don't show my face, so people don't actually know I'm Middle Eastern. So maybe they thought I was like white or like whatever, and then I just have like, you know, but there, just things like this, like somebody will be like, I have had somebody who said that the same person actually, who said that I was like encouraging people to be overweight because I had a character who was overweight, and that it wasn't, like people will find
always and it's like one of those things where I think when as an artist, obviously I'm not I'm talking from like from art, I mean like drawing and digital paintings and stuff like that. You normally, as you said earlier, you normally draw what you can relate to, or what you don't want to say in words. So your drawings are normally a reflection of experiences or your life or something that you don't actually want to say. And that's what I love about drawings, is because you see a lot of what people really mean and what they kind of, and as I've said to you many times, you've got a very unique artistic style.
Thank you.
And that's something that you can only get from being an exceptional drawer. But you mentioned earlier that you have had your fair share of like struggles with mental illness. Do you know if that translates into your work at all? Like, would you say it does on purpose, or does it not? Or
100%. One of the biggest things that I have decided to do with my art is to use it, not use it, but to use it as a platform to discuss the struggles of mental illness. So when you do explain like to somebody how struggling with like a specific illness is like. So personally, as you know, I struggle mainly with obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, generalized anxiety disorder. So a lot of anxiety, right? And then borderline personality disorder, right? So it's quite a list of things. All diagnosed, by the way. Please get diagnosed. Don't self-diagnose. Okay, it's unhealthy. Just had to throw that out there.
No, it's okay.
And oftentimes, number one, there's a lot of misinformation, right? So people will think that they know, for example, what OCD is. How many times have you heard somebody be like, "Oh my God, I'm so OCD"? Like, it's really common. So there will be a lot of misinformation, a lot of people who will automatically assume like, they get what you mean. And so if you try to explain it to them with words, sometimes they can tune you out, or sometimes they'll be like, yeah, okay, whatever, I get it, right? But with art, you can create a piece of artwork that is so visceral and striking and breathtaking, where you can feel the pain. It's in that one instance you see it and you understand it. There isn't a need for, of course, you can look at the piece and you can look at the details and try to figure out symbolism and everything, but in general, visual art has this ability to translate emotions and feelings and things otherwise difficult to explain into a piece that can carry the same amount of intensity, but bring it across in a form of media that somebody who might not struggle with the disorder can then comprehend and understand, because you can create a piece that harkens back to experiences that somebody may relate to. Like, for example, if you want to equate mental illness to physical pain, right? You could create a piece that shows somebody who is going through physical pain, and then have it relate back to mental illness through different symbolisms, maybe inclusion of words, etc., right? And because somebody knows what it's like to go through that physical pain and they can see it in the piece, it might help facilitate this process of understanding what it is like to deal with a mental illness, because you have that ability to represent the world in the way that you see it. You have the ability to, let's say you have like this water bottle, right? Like, and if I wanted to make this water bottle come off as like it's burning hot, right? It's quite cold right now, right? I could draw this water bottle, but it's on fire. I can literally change reality in the way that I want it to. And when it comes to the discussion of mental illness, especially when it is a very hard thing to describe to people who have not gone through it, because it is very personalized and all of that. I think art is a flawless tool to explain what you mean, you know what I mean? And to kind of create a sensation that might be close to what it's like to living with this kind of thing, even if it was for 1 second, for 2 seconds, etc. So I think that a bit of a long-winded answer, but I think art is a very powerful tool when it comes to discussing these kinds of things, and it's why it is the main actual centerpiece of the majority of my personal pieces.
Yeah, because I think a lot of good things, a lot of good things. A lot of things can't be spoken, or they're people are anxious to talk about things. So when it comes to drawing, when you're able to draw what you really mean or what you want to say, it's really awesome to see. I've got one final question, Emerald. If you was to go, I think I'm gonna know the answer to this, and it can't be the lottery winning numbers. If you could go 10 years back from now, what would you tell yourself?
That life is not going to go the way that you planned it to go. There are going to be a lot of twists and turns, and you're going to reach depths that you thought was never possible. But if you just keep on pushing and you keep on believing, you will find a family that will really, really appreciate you for who you are, and just to stay strong, because it's really cliche to say that things get better, but things do get better. It's just a matter of breathing and getting through it one day at a time. And this doesn't just go to anybody, this doesn't just go to myself. It goes really to anybody who is going through things like mental illness or having a rough kind of home life. Just try your best to survive, because I promise you eventually it does get better.
That's a really great answer. Because I'm always worried when I ask that, because I always want people to be like, oh, you could have turned around and been like, oh, start start this career, but start it early. But if you was to start it, if you would have started it early, you might not have been where you are today if you had started early. Exactly. But yeah, things always get better. I like that. Right. Well, thank you for joining me on the on this episode of Mav Friends. It's been really insightful.
Absolutely.
It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Glad I got to babble a little bit about art,
Thank you.
I always do.